All right, welcome back to the 2019 P2P Draft. I'm just going to get started here with the second round. It was definitely a good first round. A lot of good players came off the board. Didn't see any wide receivers, which kind of surprised me, but expect to see some here in round two. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with Arizona Cardinals, worst team in the league this past season. Let's see if they pick up some more talent. They picked up a nice cornerback in the first round. Let's see what they get for their first pick of the second. So Julio McGuire, center out of Florida State. And that looks like a pretty solid pickup. Just really needs to work on his position skill, but he's got decent enough endurance, strength, pass blocking, all of that. Maybe a little bit slow, but he's a smart guy. Good intangibles. His work ethic and competitiveness is high, so he's got a lot of room to improve, and he definitely will. That's a solid pickup. I expect him to be starting in Arizona, for at least the 4 seasons. So solid pickup for sure for Arizona with their second round pick. So let's see who we've got for the Packers' second pick. Packers' second pick will be Dean Lewis, guard out of Arkansas. He definitely is solid in strength and pass blocking. Not the best run blocker, though. So he's got some work to do in that area, but pretty solid everywhere else. Definitely doesn't move as well as you'd like, but that's something that can improve definitely. But if he gets that run blocking up, he should be pretty solid. That's definitely something. Oh shit. Seeing no data. Oh yeah, okay. There's. Maybe I'm in a bad part of the house. My Wi-Fi is definitely saying it is not good connection. So let's see. 1 second before I continue. I'm going to see if I can go somewhere. Oh, there we go. It just boosted up again. So yeah, Dean Lewis looks pretty good. Please let me know in the Discord if you're having any trouble with the stream. I seem to have some warnings here, but I haven't dropped out any more frames, so I should be pretty good, you'd think. But anyway, we'll keep moving on until I hear there's any issues. So that takes us to the Browns. They picked up Sandoval, which is going to definitely be a franchise QB of the future for them in the first round. So let's see what they end up with here in the second round. So Clarence FOLSON, defensive tackle out of Baylor. Good strength. Definitely just needs to work on his endurance and position skill. But strong enough to play. Not too many knocks on his speed or agility. I mean, the speed could probably come up a little bit, but definitely not too bad by any means. So that's a decent pick. Another Baylor guy going early in the second. On to the Bengals for their first pick of the second round. Clyde Picard out of Georgia Tech, free safety. So a little bit slower than you'd probably like at that position. You typically want up around 80 and, somewhere around 80 agility. His agility is probably fine for a defensive back, but he definitely needs more speed. He could play in some zone schemes as it stands right now, but he'd need to improve. And he's a little bit undersized to play linebacker, so he's kind of stuck. He might work a little bit better shifting over to strong safety just until his speed comes up. But overall, he's a decent player. His intangibles are a little bit suspect, so that's another concern as well. Poor sportsmanship, not great social disposition. His work ethic and competitiveness are okay. No leadership skills, definitely not much of a team player. So a bit of a project, but we'll see how Picard does in the season to come. So that takes us to the Vikings. Vikings take Kelly CRAYTON out of Penn State. So another Penn State guy going early. A little bit slow. He's got decent enough strength. He gets that position skill up, but he's definitely good run clogger. Decent enough size at 292 pounds as well. He might have the strength to even potentially shift over and maybe be a faster defensive tackle, in some kind of pass formations, that kind of thing. But overall, pretty solid pickup. A little slower than the ends we've seen go earlier in the draft, but he certainly could develop. He's got the work ethic and competitiveness to do so. And great intangibles otherwise. Solid team player, solid leadership. So good pickup, good locker room guy with some room to improve, and he definitely will. So we'll see how he does in training camp. Which brings us on to the Chargers. Dwayne SERRANO out of Rutgers, cornerback. Decent enough speed and agility, a little bit stronger than most corners, so that's good. He's got some room to grow with his speed, but he's already got great endurance and can play the position at a pro level. His intangibles aren't anything to sneeze at either. Good work ethic, decently competitive. Not the best team leader or leader, but not something you necessarily need out of the corner position. And he's got some room to grow, so he picks up that speed a little bit and that agility, and he'll be ready to start on Sundays, that's for sure. That takes us to the Broncos. Funderburk from Toledo, guard. Good strength, decent enough speed. Agility could probably come up a little bit. Needs some endurance and his position skill, but solid enough that he could play, and he can even play backup minutes as it stands now. He's got pro level strength for sure. So back on to the Raiders. They selected John Finch, tight end, in the first round. Let's see who they end up with in the second. Another tight end, Louis Nickerson. So that's two tight ends off the board for the Raiders. They take Iowa's tight end, 23 years old. Could definitely improve on strength. Has the speed to play the position, a little bit of hands as well that could improve also, but his real knock is going to be strength. He's going to need to pick that up to be a decent blocker at the pro level. But he's another guy. He's got the work ethic to do it. So I'd expect to see some improvement in the seasons to come for Nickerson. But that's back-to-back tight ends for the Raiders in back-to-back rounds. So they must kind of just have that one need and wanting to knock it out as quick as they can and as best they can. So it'll be interesting to see the competition between Fitch and Nickerson, especially coming out of training camp. Brings us to the Saints. They take Ernest Glenn, a guard out of South Carolina. decent guy, decent strength. Pass blocking is decent enough. Run blocking decent enough. He's got good endurance, which you like to see. He'll improve his position skill, but he's got the raw skills to play the position, definitely. Just needs to improve on some areas that are a little easier to improve in. Run blocking, pass blocking, and position skill are all easy. They're all trainable, where a lot of the physical attributes sometimes are a little more difficult. So he's got room to grow in the right areas, and Glenn looks like a solid pickup for the Saints. Ernest Glenn out of South Carolina. KW will be excited. I think that's the second South Carolina person picked in the draft. Anyway, on to the Seahawks, and I think they were able to get a draft board in for their second round, so let's see who they're going with. It's going to be Roy Robertson out of Virginia Tech. Decent speed and strength for a D-end. His size, he's a little bit undersized. You probably want him maybe up closer to 290. And his agility needs a little bit of work, but his endurance is decent enough with room to grow, and he'll learn the position at the pro level, and he should be pretty solid once that happens. No other real knocks on him. Just needs to work on his tackling maybe a little bit, and his agility, and he'd be a solid player at the next level. So on to the Colts. Let's see who Wire Forest. I think this was a acquired pick. So let's see who. Yeah, I think this was the old Minnesota pick. So let's see who the Colts end up with. Jason SUAREZ out of Mississippi State. Solid guy, solid run blocker. Could improve his agility a little bit. Decent enough endurance, but that'll improve. He was actually slated to go in the first round, so a lot of people surprised to see him drop this low. I honestly was as well. He's a big guy, 6'6", 320, strong, decent enough pass blocking to get some reps in the passing game, with some room to grow with his run blocking. But everything else is there, just needs a little refinement. On to the Ravens. Samuel Smith out of Tennessee, cornerback. So decent guy, decent speed out of the corner position, great intangibles, good endurance. Just needs to improve his position skill. Definitely needs to work on his agility a little bit, but solid player. Not the best hands or tackling is actually pretty good for the corner position, but his hands are a little bit low. But he's gonna be able to stay in front of guys with that speed. And his work ethic, competitiveness, all of that. He's a leader on the defense. He'll do whatever needs to be done for the team. That's a solid guy that anybody would want in the locker room. So room to improve. Just needs to work on his agility a little bit, and he'll be ready to start in the pro league. Good price too for a corner that could become a starting caliber corner for under $1 million the next 4 seasons, and he'll definitely develop. On to the Jets. Daniel Wilson out of Virginia Tech, linebacker, 21 years old. Good speed for a linebacker, 84 speed. That's going to be an asset, and his agility is pretty good for the linebacker as well. Good tackler. Really just needs to get his endurance up and his position skill up, which seems to be pretty common among a lot of incoming rookies. But he's got everything you want, especially that speed. That's going to be an asset with his size, 5'10", 227. That's definitely going to be a clutch player for them. He's got corner level speed and agility, so that's like you could even shift him over and have him be kind of a bigger safety, strong safety especially. I mean, he's got the size to play that position and play it well. 5'10", 227. He'd be an excellent strong safety, but having him be able to play linebacker as well would be great. So that's an awesome pickup for the Jets. That's actually somebody that I'd love his versatility. able to play a few different positions. I'd get him some training at strong safety, free safety, corner as the seasons went by, and shift him around. He can play anywhere just about on the defense. You could almost even play him in speed formations at the end. So definitely a great pick for the Jets. So on to the Bills. And here is our first receiver taken in the draft. Isaac Diaz out of Michigan. Solid guy, decent enough speed and agility, decent enough strength and endurance, hands. He's kind of got it all, especially with the intangibles, so I'd expect him to develop well and figure into the rotation pretty quickly in Buffalo. That's a solid pickup, and I'm surprised to see all of the receivers drop this low. And he's got a good size too, 6'5", 216. He's a big guy, strong, just solid pickup at, what are we at, 46? On to the Bucks. ERNEST Montes, another DN. So we've had a lot of DNs taken in this draft. Definitely needs to work on his agility and endurance, but he already knows how to play the position. Could improve a little on his speed as well, but really that agility is going to be a big knock. That and his intangibles, bad sport, low disposition, not a great leader, but, work ethic and competitiveness are decent enough. So, he's a bit of a head case. So as long as you can kind of keep him wrangled in, should have a solid player on your hands over there in Tampa. So back on to the Eagles. So Eagles, we've got David Logan out of UCF, a guard. Another solid pickup. So a little bit worse strength, but he already knows how to play the position. Could improve his endurance. So it's really endurance and strength. So you get some high strength training on that guy. He could pick it up, but he's got the pass blocking and run blocking ability. He could maybe work on his agility a little bit, but it's not quite as necessary. And that's, his intangibles are good as well. So pretty solid pickup with a little bit of development, especially in the strength necessary for David Logan out of UCF. So on to the Lions. Let's see, the Lions taking the second round. We've got Thomas Richards, a quarterback out of Clemson. So definitely good enough arm and accuracy. His speed and strength, along with his intelligence, are a little bit suspect, but he's got the intangibles to help your team in the locker room. But he really is going to have to, the main thing he's going to have to work on to be competitive at this level is his intelligence. That's a hard position to have lower intelligence on as QB. And he could stand to benefit to build up his strength as well. But they've already got Armstead over there in Detroit, who's an entrenched starter. So he should be able to learn and improve from one of the best quarterbacks in the pro league in Armstead. And maybe he'll get a chance in a few seasons, depending on his development. So on to the Titans. Michael James, a running back out of Notre Dame. His strength's a little low, but he knows how to play the position, decent enough endurance. He's fast, has good enough agility to play at this level for sure. But you're not going to have him catching passes out of the backfield. He's not good at pass blocking. His run blocking leaves a little to be desired as well. And his strength really is going to need to improve. But he's got the intangibles to be a player and a force in the locker room. So decent enough pickup. He'll probably get some backup minutes to start out. But he's a fast guy and, could possibly improve. He could possibly even get his speed up there to 95 or so in the coming seasons, depending on how his development goes. But he really is going to need to have some work done with his strength. On to the Texans. So Texans take Justin Bauman, a defensive tackle out of Texas, and he's got good speed and agility for a defensive tackle. He's a little bit undersized compared to some of the other DTs we've seen that are at like 330 pounds, 323, somewhere in there. He's a little bit undersized compared to those guys, and his strengths leaves a little bit to be desired, but he's got some room to grow, and if he can get that strength up to around 85, he'll learn to play the position. That shouldn't be an issue. He'll be a starting caliber defensive tackle in this league for sure. So on to the Rams. Donnie Roman out of Memphis. He's another guy that put up a lot of yards, kind of at a small school. He needs to improve his arm and his endurance. His strength probably a little bit, but he's got the accuracy, pro-level accuracy, and no knocks on him in terms of how he plays the position. But he is a little bit older, so that kind of gives him a shorter window for development. But it's possible he could develop into a starting caliber if he gets that intelligence and that arm up a little bit. But still, I have a hard time viewing any arm below 80 as starting caliber. But you can make it work depending on the scheme. So maybe the Rams will scheme around him. But they've got talent already in the QB room over there, so he's not an absolute necessary guy. So solid pickup for the Rams at number 20 in the second round. On to the 49ers. Danny Arthur, another wide receiver. Good hands, good enough agility, great intangibles, good endurance, knows how to play the position. He really just has to improve that speed. Even if he could get it up around 80, that puts him in possession receiver territory. But yeah, a little bit too slow to really play at the pro level, but that's what development's for. Maybe he can get a few ticks up in training camp and with some training over the course of the season. On to the Steelers. Ford Atlantic running back. Solid speed and agility, decent enough strength with some room to improve. Just needs to learn how to play the position. Definitely being a running back, you usually want running backs up around 80 for their endurance because they handle the ball a lot and they take a lot of hits, so they tend to get worn out a lot faster. But definitely a decent change of pace, speedy guy out of the backfield, and he could even catch some passes, and that's another spot he could even develop over the years. If he could get up near 70, I mean, you'd put him as very competent in the passing game. I even have receivers that are only like 74 hands that do pretty well. So he could catch some passes. Definitely a solid pickup. Running back out of Florida Atlantic at Ernie Cothran at number 54. So on to the Panthers. Johnny Hagan out of Boise State. Good strength. A little bit slow. Decent enough agility for a DT. 290. So a little bit undersized again. He's kind of more where you'd want the defensive end, but he's a little bit too slow to play defensive end. But decent enough strength. He could play the position, but he might have a hard time with that size unless he can get that strength up 90, 92, somewhere in there. On to the Colts again. Oscar French out of Houston, cornerback. Good, solid speed for a corner. Definitely needs to improve his agility. Could work on his endurance. You want to get that up around 70, but he's got great intangibles, which you definitely want to have on the squad. That helps keep morale up among the team, and I know they've had issues with morale and players, having a hard time in the locker room over there. So his team player and leadership will definitely help with that quite a bit, and he's got the talent to play. Just needs some refinement for sure. So on to the Vikings. Vikings take a defensive end, a little bit slow at the DN position, 282 pounds. He knows how to play the position well, just really needs to improve that endurance and that speed. That's kind of going to be the main knock. Has strength enough, but that has room to grow as well. So pretty raw player, but he's only 22, so he's got some room to develop. That brings us to Dallas. Paul Pence, a center out of Florida, could improve on the strength, but he's a guy really you could play him anywhere on the line, and he's got decent enough endurance to start out with, which is helpful, which means he can play later into games and more snaps. But he does need to improve his strength. Blocking ability can improve as well, but they run mostly a passing scheme over there in Indy, so he could be a solid option in the pass blocking game already, and you know, we'll see how he develops in training camp. So that takes us to, oh, and that wasn't Indy, that was Dallas, which they run a more balanced scheme. So back to the Dolphins. That's a solid pickup. That's actually a guy I thought was going to go high in the first round, and Gabriel Wesley. Speed and agility, hands are decent enough. He knows how to play the position, but that's a pretty solid pickup. Wesley picked up a lot of yards in that Virginia offense, and Miami kind of has a similar scheme to what Virginia runs in the college game, so should be a pretty easy transition for Wesley. He does have some personality issues, but he's already got skills to play in the league. I mean, you can already slate him as a second or third receiver likely, and that speed and agility will grow, and hands are going to be a little easier to train than trying to train the physical skills. So solid pickup. Brings us to the Jags. So David Garcia out of Utah, free safety. He was one of the highest rated guys in college football. I think he was a 97 overall when he came out as a senior. Solid guy, played 4 years at Utah, won 3 championships. He was the starting free safety every season. Looks like he'll kind of continue that in this league, has the speed and agility. Strength is good as well. He's even a guy that you could move over to corner and have him be a little bit of an oversized cornerback. Good hands as well. His endurance is good. Solid pickup, and he's actually a guy that I thought was going to go or be slated to go much higher in the draft, and it looks like he could have. That's a solid player. On to the Chiefs. Justin Odom out of Georgia. Solid across the board guy, good endurance. Just needs to work on his, really his speed and agility. That could come up a little bit, but if it does, he'll be a force. But I think he could already get some playing time at any of the linebacker positions. But he does have some room to grow. But he's really well balanced, so that's kind of the nice thing. Wherever he grows can kind of determine where he ends up playing. The only spot I would not put him is maybe D end, just because he's not fast enough to be a speed rusher. But if he develops in some areas, I mean, there's a lot of options for him to play. On to the Falcons. Silas Saunders out of Florida. So he's another guy that he had a good career over there in Florida. Was always a little bit under with his arm, and his strength's a little bit suspect, but he was solid over there in Florida, put up a lot of yards, was part of a few great Florida teams, and a no-risk player, very similar to Waylon, who they got last year. But the kind of nice thing about Silas Saunders is he's got the speed and agility to move around in the pocket. He just doesn't have the strength to really take a lot of hits, so that's kind of the hard part when you have a guy that can move It's just he's about as fragile as glass with that strength. So we'll see how he develops over there in Atlanta. But that's low risk pickup. He's a smart player. His work ethic's a little bit suspect. Not the greatest sport, but he's a decent leader in the locker room, and as a team player, he'll do whatever you need him to do. So decent enough pickup, and he's only 21 years old, so he's got some room to develop as well. So that brings us to football team. Joshua Mercado out of LSU. And we did need a quarterback to play third string. That's kind of not the type of quarterback I love. I would have gone for a guy with more arm strength, as 70 arm strength I think is just too low to really play in any scheme that I run. But solid guy that can play some backup minutes, and he's not expensive. For 4 years, $600,000. He might develop, and we've got to replace. We had Lester Waite out of Texas, and he wants too much money to come back, so he's probably not going to come back to play third string for a football team. So with Bravo entrenched as a starter, any player is no risk really. So that leaves us with the champion Patriots for the last pick. See who they go with. Another defensive tackle, Edward Tolliver from Temple. Decent enough strength, speed, and agility. Just needs to work on that endurance. But a lot of defensive line players taken in the draft that kind of surprised me. I think there's only been 2 wide receivers taken so far. Definitely a few quarterbacks, and I think I've only seen 2 or 3 running backs, which is interesting. I thought it was definitely a running back heavy draft. Maybe quarterback heavy too, but there have been some solid pickups at QB that we'll see how they develop. So that concludes round 2.